Pencil Kings. My name is Lori B. The following drawing lesson is on how to draw faces. In the first few segments that you'll watch, I'm going to illustrate the bones of the head and face, which are your cranium, your mandible or jaw, and your spine. Like the framework of a house, understanding the structure of the skeleton underneath the surfaces that we're learning to draw is the basis of comprehending true human form and solid character design. Now, of course, I'm a firm believer in learn rules first, then break them. So in the latter half of this tutorial, I will draw side-by-side realistic and cartoony faces of female, male, and baby facial proportions. As well, I will begin to explore how modifying these standard shapes and proportions can lead us to virtually unlimited combinations of character designs. Alright everybody, let's get started, and we're going to jump into skeletons. That is first and foremost what our face structure is based off of for this face lessons for today. So I'm going to begin, I'm going to use some, again I'm just going to cover with you, I've got some various colored pencils and I've got a graphite mechanical. You'll see me come in maybe with this is a eraser stick, hard eraser, kneadable eraser. Awesome stuff. All serve very cool different purposes. So I'm just going to start with one color here and just kind of show you the construction of a skeleton of the head. Now we've got three basic components of bone structure to consider. We've got the cranium, which is your skull, which is your brain is housed inside. I'm just drawing a skull from the side here, by the way. I'm just going to kind of roughly cut that in half. Just going to give it an eye line, a kind of a low eye line here. This is basically a skull, and we've all seen it before too. This is a basic shape of a head drawn from the side. So you have cranium, cheekbone here. This lower part here is the mandible or your jaw, teeth. And I'm going to incorporate the spine for the sake of this lesson because it does mount to kind of the lower back side here of the head. So there's your three basic parts: cranium, mandible, spine. When you're looking at the skull from the side, it tends to be kind of quite elongated as opposed to when you're looking at it from the front. I'm just going to move this over a tad. Let me just draw some parallel lines here so I keep everything in the same, in the same proportion roughly, but I'm going to draw side by side. If I were to turn that head facing camera dead on, there's a middle line here, roughly this. Okay, jaw lines up here, chin comes out. And that would be like looking at the skull from the front. You'll see as I piece together both of these here, I'll do them both together in progression so that you can see how things are staying in proportion here by using these parallel lines. And I'm going to talk about these a little bit later when I'm talking about doing a head rotation of your character. Eye socket. We've all seen skulls before, and we know that that's just a big hole. This edge of your eye socket is actually your cheekbone. This ridge defines your brow bone, sometimes called orbital ridge. Okay. And we'll see here. I want to make sure that I keep everything in alignment here. Drawing a skull from the front, then we see these kind of triangular shaped holes is your eye socket. Brow bone, just like over here, brow bone. It's actually a whole ridge that comes across. But for the most part, Brows are there for the most part. Cheekbones are here. Now here's where we get that nice skull shape, traditional skull shape. Here's your temples. And there's not a whole lot of bone there. It's very thin. If you ever see a real skeleton, you'll see that it gets really thin here. Tends to get really thin around here too. Right. But there we get those nice strong skull cheekbones here. This is all kind of one piece here. This. You would see a kind of a dent here on a skull. That's indicating that temple area right there. Cheekbone. This is all one part. This is nasal bone. The rest is cartilage. I think most of you obviously know that. There's nasal bone and the top teeth. Then the bottom teeth, which usually the top teeth, most people have like kind of an overbite. You can change this. We'll talk about that later in character designs, where you can change proportions and really push and exaggerate some of your design components. But for the most part, people have overbites. I've seen people with underbites, and that can create some interesting character designs for sure. This part here is your mandible. This is like a hinge joint here. This can move. Cranium tends to stay rigid. There's not a lot of flex in your bones, period. But especially when you come to, if any of you out there are considering animation, especially a 2D animation, you don't get a great deal of give on the skull, but you can get a lot of swaying jaws and slack jaw and lots of movement through the mandible. But it's good to have a solid cranium mass. Alright, looking at it from the front, it's a lot narrower, but it's going to have characteristics from the front side. And again, I mentioned the temples being one of them, the cheekbones being another. Now this shape, when it comes down into your upper teeth, we know that our teeth, let me just draw that along, there we go. We know that our teeth do not actually go right to the edges here, so we have to study. And I mean, if you have access to a full-size or even smaller scale human skeleton replica or real or whatever, look at it. Look at it from all angles. Draw it from all angles. That's where I learned. That's where I learned, is in animation school. I had access to that skeleton and I drew it all the time. Assignment or not, I kept drawing that thing to understand human anatomy. If you don't have a skeleton, learn from books. Get a medical book or get a anatomy for artists specifically. So here I'm drawing in this hinge part. There's a hollow in your cheeks, which is why when you puff your cheeks out, air comes out these sides and you can puff the skin out. But there's basically from the side and from the front, nasal bone. Here we go. Teeth, roughly. Okay, and I'm just going to, in the next segment, I'm going to draw over top of this and show you how, as you change the skeleton, you change the face and the expression.